have the slide up, please? Okay, next slide, and the next. Okay, all right, so what do you mean by coding? It's basically, simply means to create a code. And in order to do code, you need to write a programming language. You need to use programming languages. Now, it's not like, one programming language fits all sizes, right? You have hundreds of programming languages and more that are getting evolved and created every day. So you would use a programming language for, say, building a mobile app. You may also use a programming language to do data analysis and, AI. So there are so many different programming languages that you could use, and they're used for different means. Now, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so how would you go about writing a code? Think about it like a math problem. What would you do, right? For example, a problem could be that I already have a software and I want to add additional features. Like when in your Instagram, when they saw that your Snapchat videos were doing so well, what they introduced was your Instagram stories, right? Where within 24 hours it disappears. So that is a kind of a problem where you had an application, but then you wanted to enhance it for making it more better. Another example could be that something that was done manually. Like we've been talking about digitizing the way in which we vote. Now, if you want to be able to do that, you need to allow people to go somewhere to vote. So that would mean that you need a website, right? Now, in addition to the website, maybe make it more easier and say, create a mobile app in order for you to be able to do vote. So those are just some of the problems that you may have. Now you have this problem, how do you solve it, right? Your computer, what it would understand is a set of instructions, and whatever you give, that is all it'll do. I mean, just leaving AI aside for now. And that set of instructions is what we call as an algorithm. Giving a problem, like for example, right now it's really cold, right? I want to know what is the weather in Kohima today. What are the set of instructions, or what would I do? Since I have a mobile, I would go to my mobile app. Now, what are the steps that you would perform in order to do that? Say this is an iPhone, so my home screen is here. I would, if this phone was locked, I would say, place my thumb on the phone, on my home screen, go to the app, my weather app, and check the weather, which is like 13 degrees right now. So that is the logical steps that I would perform in order to, know what the weather is. So similarly, that is the exact set of instructions that you would give a computer in order to do something. Now, if I divert away from there, what if I didn't have the weather app and give those set of instructions to the computer? It would not understand, right? So it means that I need to be able to evolve those steps and add additional steps like, okay, now I need to go to my app store and I need to search for a weather app which suits my needs, download the app, install it, then I need to go and, find Kohima as a location and search what the weather, how the weather is. So that is what is, a set of instructions, or algorithm is what we call, in order for your computer to understand what you do. So can you go to the next slide? So that is what, I'm just giving an example here. And if you just go to the next slide. Okay, now when we're talking about the programming world, there are so many languages that I've put up there. You have Java, Python, Visual Basics, etc. How do you know which one should I learn? So one of the first pieces of code that I wrote when I was working with Accenture was this encoding in Excel, Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel, we use a language called as the Visual Basics application, VBA. And the problem that we needed to solve was, that was like 9 or 10 years ago. So back then, we didn't have like a really jazzy web reporting applications. So all the reporting used to be done in Microsoft Excel. So we had a finance report, which we needed to kind of create every quarter and every 6 months and every year. And it took a lot of man hours to create that manually, right? Because it had a lot of complex formulas that we needed to do. So what we did was we wrote some lines of code in order to automate the way in which we had to, come up with the results that is needed for the report. So there, I needed to know VBA. So that is what we mean here by when you want to learn a language, pick based on your needs and what you are trying to do. Next slide. Okay, so this is more of a pictorial representation, giving you an idea of what kind of programming languages to use where. So take, for example, I just needed to create a website wherein I want to give, like a newspaper website, where I just want to give information to the user, some text, and I want to just give some pictures. So in such a scenario, I would just use languages like HTML and CSS. Now, take it a little further and try to make it more interactive. Like, I want to insert a video where me as a user needs to click on the play button, and in order to stop and start playing the video, I needed to interact with the website, right? So if you want such kind of functionalities to be there in your website, we then use JavaScripts. Now, to take it a little further, if I wanted to say allow users to subscribe or give additional information to the user by allowing them to register, it involves not only what display you see there, but it needs to capture your username or your email ID so that it can send you subscriptions, right? So there, it requires your information to be stored somewhere in the server or database. So that would then mean that you're now not only viewing the data or seeing something on the screen, but you need to interact with your database or your server. So there, then we have languages like your Python and Java and C and C++ that helps you to do that. So and if you go now, you have a website, you have an interactive website where you have pictures and videos and you're allowing users to register. It's only on a website. Now, what if I want to take that into, build a mobile app for that? Now, if you want to do that, you have the iOS, and you have Mac phones and you have Android phones. So if you wanted to now take that newspaper and build a build an app that would work on an Android phone, then you would have to use the Java language to do that. And similarly, if you want to have the newspaper website working for an Apple phone, then you would need to learn Objective-C, and I think now they use a language called a Swift to do that. So there are various different reasons and languages depending upon your need, where you either pick up your Python first or C first or your Java first, right? If you can go to the next slide. Okay, so just giving you a quick example, if you look at the screen that you see there, this is your Facebook page where you need to give your credentials and log in. So if you look at the words that are written there, which is called Facebook helps you connect and share with people in your life. So there's just a static text that you see there, right? So for that, we use the language called HTML. Now, if you look at the text boxes where I have to key in my email ID and my password, and it is located in your, for me, it would be on my right top corner, and the position of where the text box is coded in through my language called as CSS. CSS is more of allowing you to kind of style your page based on what is the color you want, where you want to place it, how you want the user to see it, right? Now, once I have that designed, I enter my email ID or my phone number and my password, and I press on the login button. When I do that, what is happening in the background is my credentials that I have entered in the system is checking two things, right? Am I registered? Two, if I'm registered, is my password correct? So that requires, an interaction with your server and your database to kind of verify whether that information is correct or not. So that's where your languages like your PHP and Java and C come into picture. If you can go to the next slide. And this is just giving you a picture of, your most commonly used websites, what kind of languages that you're using. If you look at the languages that are listed here, it is just not one language in which, a website is built. It uses multiple different languages because they are performing different actions in your website. And the next slides. So these are some of the online resources. If you want to start learning coding, probably you can just take it from the team. They might have the slides. And the next slide after that. And this is just giving you an idea of what are the type of job openings that you may have based on the languages that you may want to learn. Now, this brings me to the end of my presentation. But before I do that, in the morning session when, Honorable Advisor Molomo was talking about the 20 objectives that they need to meet, right, which ranges across like data security and state data centers and biometrics and networking infrastructure. In order to achieve that, you will need software developers, you will need people working on networking, people working on infrastructure, right? Which he mentioned they're going to generate like around 1 lakh amount of jobs. So who's going to be part of that, right? It is you and me who's going to take this forward. So what I want to leave you with is help Nagaland achieve its goal of becoming a major software exporter in Southeast Asia. And since your winter break is coming up, why don't you just giving you a small challenge. Why don't you get a group of friends and learn coding? It's as simple as it can get. You don't have to build like a complicated website or a complicated app. It could be simply like, I want to document how I spend my winter break, and add videos and pictures that I have, collected over my winter break, right? It could be as simple as that. So, lastly, just ending with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, that be a part of the change that you want to see in the world, because we've been talking about changes and how we need to evolve and how Nagaland is going to go forward, right? So with that, I would say I'll end my session and thank you.
May I request our resource persons, Dr. Avo, Madam Anila, Dipankar, to please come on the stage, and while our chairpersons conclude the session.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to hear to Mrs. Jamir about coding for students, and I would like to leave a challenge for Mr. Viso, our commissioner. Maybe during next summit we can have some students' applications. They have 1 year to develop their own apps, and maybe we can have an award. Okay? Brilliant idea, brilliant. You have customers, they are the future. So now, for the difficult part, questions. We will, because it's cold, it's late, you are tired, and we run out of tea. We will have like 3-4 questions. I know that the power department has a few questions for our friend Chris. So please go ahead and let's have 3 to 4 questions and then short answers so everybody can go home to the warm place. Anybody? Any question? No? Going once? Aha, we have a customer here.
Thank you for the time, and just standing up because time is given and then the department has been named specifically. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Dihakar on the blockchain technology, and another couple for Mr. Chris on, maybe he has not covered much on the energy conservation, but I'd just like to put in a couple of questions there as well. On the blockchain, in the Bitcoin, which you have been referring, for the future, what is the level of the Bitcoin threat to existing fiat currencies? One. And secondly, as you have mentioned that it's about 4,000 US dollars at the moment because of the heavy investments and technology that is required. But as technology evolves, it's going to become easier to mine blockchain. So, I mean the Bitcoin. So will its current value not go down drastically, perhaps theoretically to even zero? So those are the two questions on there. And when I'm still standing up, let me just continue on energy conservation. Now, just quickly looking back, Estonia has about 6,000 units of per capita consumption. And compared with that, Nagaland is nothing, with just 500 units. So now, and then the Finland, most of European countries, US, they have 8,000 to 12,000. So now if we consider this, what is practically about energy conservation got to do with us? Maybe it's not a very technical question, but as a matter of policy. And what is the developed countries in Europe and the West doing so that we can also follow that? And secondly, per capita consumption is now mixed up with industrial consumption and everything, so maybe that's why it's high in the industrialized countries. So can we have a model where only the domestic category is segregated, and then just like in the WHO, water consumption where 20 liters, 40 liters is considered for basic survival, for energy as well, can we have a similar standard so that the consumption worldwide is balanced? Thank you.
Yes, sorry, can you please repeat your first question on the blockchain?
A couple of questions there, yes. One is that what is going to be the future threat level of Bitcoins to existing fiat currencies? Secondly, as technology evolves and the cost of mining for Bitcoin drastically goes down, theoretically its value from the present 4,000 US dollars which you mentioned can go down to even zero. Is that possible?
And for the second question, so it's not only the mining rewards, it's coming, they are decreasing, but the miner also get the transaction fees. So it's not only the reward points they are getting by mining the block, but when there is a lot of transactions, so all the user has also have to put some transactional fees. So only then when the miner goes from where they can get the profit. And the value of the Bitcoin, it's completely depend on the stock market. So how many users are generally using. So based on that, it's the value is currently, and if you see in the yesterday, it gave 10% high in the value. So previously it was around 4,000 something, and now it's 4,200. Yeah. Thank you.
So I couldn't hear the question very good, but yeah, can you ask again? I understood you asked about energy can't say the word.
conservation.
Conservation, yeah. And how it is implemented, how could you implement it in Nagaland? Was it that? Or can you?
Yes, something to that effect, because like our consumption level is just about 500 units per capita. Compare that with Estonia, 6,000,
Yeah.
or in Europe, 8,000 to 10,000. No matter what we do, there's very little scope for conservation. So can we have some model where the per capita consumption can be identified for the domestic category, and by identifying that, whether we can have a worldwide uniformity for per capita consumption. Otherwise, the developed countries is consuming about 100 times, 200 times than what we are consuming. So the issue of conservation doesn't seem very fair to us, but at the same time, the impact on climate change is going to affect everyone. So from that perspective, it's not a technical question, sorry, a little bit of a political maybe, but from that perspective, what would the West say, because you are from the West, and with that respect, what can we also do so that we also at least contribute in whatever way that we can?
The thing is that, you have a challenge also with a grid and where to build lines and so on. And actually producing electricity from solar panels, and if you have those smart solutions, and if you're building this digital society, and your energy consumption will increase. And in this, can't really recommend you the model, but we can discuss it after the panel also, just to go a little deeper.
Thank you so much. And I see from your faces that you are cold and tired, and I think that we will end up here. We had 4 questions. So if you don't mind, I will ask the Commissioner to come here and to wrap up this incredible session. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you so much for your patient hearings. Indeed, we are great. Just 1 more minute. Oh, right, yeah. We are extremely grateful to our resource persons who have come all the way from Europe and elsewhere. And we're extremely grateful to the students who have been listening patiently till now. In fact, this e-Naga Summit is for to prepare the younger generation to face the challenges of the 21st century. We are here to prepare the next generation, a brave, bold, and smart generation to face the challenges which is coming at a very fast pace. I will not go into the details and waste more time, but just to pass a message that for a nation, for a state to grow, there are many ways. If you look at the modern times, countries like Singapore and South Korea, they came up very quickly to the stage of a developed state by choosing the correct path. If you look in the Bible also, Moses is supposed to take his people in 40 days to Israel, but because of choosing the wrong path, it took 40 years. So now we have a lot of advisors, people to guide us, so we definitely will not go to the wrong path. We have learned so many things on e-government, smart city, the initiatives of Northeastern region, the identity management, web service, blockchain, cyber security, energy conservation, artificial intelligence, coding, and so on. I regret we did not give more time for questions, but next time we will take this into account and see that the timing is properly done. With this, we come to the conclusion of the this e-Naga Summit. But before our young friends go away, I would like to ask you a question. By the end of the session, do you now believe that we can build infrastructure to make the state of Nagaland the next IT hub of Southeast Asia? If yes, raise your hand and say, yes, we can. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, in order to mark the successful culmination of the 4th e-Naga Summit, I would like to invite Ms. Kroku and Ms. Vizenio for benediction.